Okay, cool. So now we're live on YouTube. Probably no one will watch this right now, but it'll be useful for people
Right.
in the future who want to understand how the Gitwit Sandbox code base is working.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we've just rewritten the README.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty extensive as far as like how to get this set up.
Right.
There's a couple of confusing parts, but which I've sort of noted. Oh, actually, this part we just fixed, so I'm going to delete this. But have you sort of glanced through these
Yeah,
steps?
I also like cloned the repo and like I was trying to set up, but
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think there was the
let's go through from the beginning
yeah.
and um, and just um, and just go step by step. Also, um, we just changed this, which says that the templates that used to be loaded from Cloudflare, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but we load them from E2B, which is way faster. So I'm going to actually just fix that right here in in GitHub. In GitHub, I'll just um, so yeah, by the top here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now we are loading project templates from a custom cloud. We are not doing that anymore. So docs. Yeah. Cool. So that's fixed. So the one note I have here at the top is some people got confused about this super duper secret thing too.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Did you get that far?
No, I was just stuck that like on clerk, like shall I create account with my credentials or like there's this like credentials common for everyone, like we have to use that. Like
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I understand. Um, yeah. So just to start from the beginning, so we are using Cloudflare.
mm-hmm.
Um, you also need Vercel, so maybe I should add that. But that's just the web hosting. So a quick overview of the tech. We use Next.js app. We host that on Vercel, and
Mm-hmm.
Express.js, we're hosting that on AWS EC2. Um, so that's the hosting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, I wrote this a long time ago, but um, but yeah, that kind of makes sense. So basically, and then on top of that, we use these four other
Mm-hmm.
hosted services. Um, so for Clerk, Live Blocks, and E2B, they're all very easy and free to set up.
Yep.
So I would recommend just set up your own Clerk development account.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then for Cloudflare, we are working on instructions that allow you to test everything without deploying to Cloudflare. But it should be pretty straightforward using these instructions to deploy to Cloudflare as well, and it's also free. So I would just go through. I would just create your own accounts for
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Yep.
Uh,
Sure.
and yeah, previously we weren't doing that because we had the template stored on one Cloudflare account, but now you don't need now the templates are public E2B templates, so you
Right.
don't need any account for that. So you got to here, right? Adding clerk,
Yeah,
right?
I did this and like I was at the second step, like adding
Yeah.
the clerk key.
Yeah. So yeah, I would just make it just a throwaway clerk account. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we might have you used clerk before?
Nope. I,
Okay.
I heard it for first time and like the,
Have you used oh, of course. So you're a Python background.
yeah.
So you would not need to use any of these options. But basically, let me just do like Reddit, clerk, next off. So if you would like search search Reddit clerk next off, because these are kind of the two very popular auth solutions,
Right.
and they're very different. So the thing you just showed me with was it Mem0?
Yeah, that was Mem0.
That's very clerk-like solution.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking something that's relatively simple that you could probably do yourself, but then
Right.
making it even easier by hosting it. Next off is all integrates with the database that you already have. It doesn't have just an open source library. It doesn't have any hosted version that you would use. So let's see. These people say clerk has been unreliable. It's easy to set up, and this is the truth. It's easy to set up. It is
Right.
really easy to set up. Cause you hours of ongoing pain between downtimes. I haven't experienced that, but what I have experienced is that basically being easy to set up does not always mean that it's easier to use in the
Right.
long
Right.
run. Yeah, so to me that clerk is like a good way to get started, but not necessarily necessary. We can use next. Nextauth is actually used by the majority of Next.js applications, and it doesn't need any hosted because you already need a database.
Right.
Playing the storage. Okay, and so the probably that's rather confusing to you is probably the Cloudflare stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, Cloudflare has this thing called Cloudflare Workers, which is very
Okay.
similar to AWS Lambda functions.
Mm-hmm.
And are you kind of familiar with those?
Yep.
You have used them before.
I'm not used that, but I know what they do. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let me just open Cursor real quick, and I'll show you how we deploy them. It's so easy.
Was there any specific reason to use Cloudflare or like?
Yeah. So that was actually not our decision, but
Right. Right.
Ishan, who made the original
Mm-hmm.
repository that we forked, he used Cloudflare, and the Cloudflare is used for basically three things.
Mm-hmm.
Here under the backend, we have storage,
Storage. Mm-hmm.
which is so we have server, which is not Cloudflare.
Okay.
That's the WebSocket server, which goes on AWS. It's just a standard. It's just a regular web server. It has nothing to do with Cloudflare, but it does connect to the Cloudflare. And then we have database, which is literally a SQL database
Mm-hmm.
that runs on Cloudflare. Then we have storage, which is it is a TypeScript serverless function that that can connect to the database, but it does basically handles, let's see, deleting a project, getting the size of a project,
Mm-hmm.
listing the projects that a user has. So storage and server are very similar. Not server, storage and database are
Mm-hmm.
very similar and easy to confuse. It looks like if we look under database, it's listing. It's more about managing the users. I think. But one thing that I'm a little confused about is why these are actually two separate, why database and storage are separate and why we can't just combine them. So here is about creating sandboxes. So these are some of the last parts of the code that actually we haven't really changed at all. That's why I don't really know. It's basically just the database endpoints.
Right.
And they're basically just endpoints. It would be very similar to do in Python. So /API/user, it checks for, something like this, ID equals.
Right.
It gives the sandbox is owned by that user. So this is just glue code.
Right.
And we haven't had to change that yet. The AI is even more simple, honestly.
Yeah, I saw the code.
Yeah. It's
You are yeah.
and for
I saw the prompt also you are using like that.
yeah. And for the chat itself, actually, it was so simple. I'm not sure we're even using a backend for that. Or rather, I think that Akhilesh may have found a way to do that in Next.js. Let's actually do it from the examine it from the front end, because that's a way more intuitive way for me to understand what it's doing. This is also not the part of none of this is the part that I actually made, so it's interesting to look into. The part that I have been working on majority is the templates and files, the file system. So we'll just make a new project, call it my world. Okay. And let's see. So here we have the AI editor and the AI chat. Okay, so I'm going to open the inspector here. And I don't know what that stuff is, but basically, put this. Oops, I'll put this maybe here and go to network. So yeah, the first thing is like this edit code.
Oh.
Okay, so that's one feature we have, and then and that's completely separate from this chat. So they're implemented separately. It may actually be possible to combine some of the code actually. Right now they're just separate. So let's do the let's just select everything, and actually, can I do that? Yeah, and here there's something to say edit code, right? And I can say like, it's more fun if I run it. Okay, so let's just say here, let's just say countdown instead of count up. Now, we are watching here in the network at the bottom here to see what happens. So I don't see anything, and the reason why so let's just see that it worked actually. And I notice we're having a screen size issue, I think. So it starts at 10, or maybe I have to refresh. Oops. So let's look at so this code looks good. Looks like the refresh didn't, for some reason the auto refresh didn't do anything. Let's see. That could be a bug. If I stop this, restart it. Huh. Okay. Oh. Okay, yeah. So we have to fix that bug, whatever that is. But the reason why it didn't do that, why it didn't show up here is actually because I think it's using the WebSocket. So when a new WebSocket, let me make this bigger. When a new WebSocket connection is created, you see that here.
Yep.
But that only happens at the beginning when the page is first loaded. And then after that, you see all of the messages coming through. What you're seeing now is when the page first loads, in order to fill this list up, it sends all of the files here. Can I see more? I guess that's basically what you get.
So basically, it sends all your projects files to E2B, right?
So actually, it's the other way around. Well, sort of. It first reads all the files from E2B. Okay, so it creates a new E2B container first.
Okay.
That contains all of the default files.
Right.
For
Okay.
the template. In this case, we haven't changed anything. So it just loads. So it just reads the E2B container directly.
Okay. Yeah.
If you've changed files and then you close the project and you reopen it, then it still loads the template, but it will copy only the files that you've changed. It'll copy those from your personal storage.
Right.
The reason why is because this folder, some of these files are huge, like the node.
Right.
Node
Yeah.
So that just makes it much faster. So you see that, and then what you're seeing here isn't that. What you're seeing here is the backend sending this list of files to the front end, just so that it has that list. And if here we create a new file,
Right.
it should do that. Oh wow, so you see a lot of stuff going on. Basically, let's just go one by one. You see a heartbeat, and put it on the side so it's clear. So you see the heartbeat. The heartbeat gets sent, I don't know, every 10, 20 seconds or so.
Right.
And
yeah.
Once that stops for 2 minutes, then the sandbox will get shut down.
Right.
Because it costs money to keep them running.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we click plus, it sends a create terminal to the back end that just creates a new terminal shell within the sandbox. This is the data. This is the text coming out of the terminal. This looks like some kind of bug that doesn't affect anything. These are more heartbeats. The terminal resize, because the thing is, like, if I do this, well, that didn't do what I wanted. But if I do, let's say we do this, right? And then we do this. You notice how it resizes the columns. This is actually done in the container itself.
Right.
Because if you have a more complex application, maybe, I don't know if we have any more complex applications, they need to do clever things when you resize sometimes. In a real shell, for example, like, I don't know top, but I don't know if this is a great example, but let's just say the terminal actually wants to know the programs running in the terminal actually want to know the size of it,
Mm-hmm.
doing something with 2D graphics or something. So at any time I send, like I type something, that actually gets sent in real time. And
Oh. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then actually this comes back, the data comes back with a terminal response like this. Now, yeah, and it has to do that because, like, for example, if you do clear, it needs to know to clear everything.
Yeah.
So, and that's all done on the console side. Now, the thing that we were going to, the other thing I was going to show is if you
Create a file.
create a new file here,
Mm-hmm.
you see this loaded event?
Mm-hmm.
That's the same event we got at the beginning when the files loaded. So it just sent that loaded event again to refresh the files.
Right. Basically, the backend sent it to the front end. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why these WebSockets are really useful because it's just, both directions we can send it. It's more complex than normal API. Now, getting back to the code generation part, let's try this again with this. Say refactor. And you see this?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Generate.
So there was a generate code event.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I really thought there was a way to see more of what's happening, but anyways, this is enough. You can see that it's sending the code. It's also here. It's sending the code. It's sending the name of the file we're changing, the code, and then also the prompt. And then here we're getting this response back. So what's happening is actually that this is what's happening is actually that the front end here from here front end actually sending a WebSocket to the back end under server. And if we look at what that WebSocket's actually doing, which is all should be under sandbox.ts. So here it was called generate code, right? So actually, if I'm really lazy, I just search in VS Code for generate code, and I see under sandbox.ts here this generate code. It points to a function here called handle generate code. And all that does is it actually calls the Cloudflare worker and then returns the response.
Okay.
Now, a really good question would be, what I'm thinking about now is like, why even use the Cloudflare worker when we could just run the code directly in here? Right? See what I'm saying?
So, okay. Right.
Because this is an Express.js server, and it's calling a serverless function.
Okay.
So they're running two different places. This code is running on AWS, right?
Right.
The backend, the server, and then this AI bit here is running on let's see. Yeah, this code which you read is running on Cloudflare.
Right.
In a serverless function. So my question is like, why are we offloading that onto Cloudflare? That particular AI code generation function, which I don't have an answer for. Like what?
So,
what? Yeah, go on.
So like this was like figured out by Ishan, right? You guys didn't like touch down on this.
I mean, yeah, but that doesn't mean we can't change it. I mean, all I would do if I wanted to change it, all I would do is I would just take, for example, this. I would just copy a lot of this code and then I would just paste it into here, something like that.
Right.
Or I would just, I would just refactor it slightly. Now, let's look at how the AI Cloudflare worker is set up. There's a Wrangler dot. Oops. Okay, it's just part of my API key. That's fine. So there's an API key here for Anthropic, and that's really the only thing that it needs. We could do this on the back end. We could do this on the Express.js server. So yeah, I could just take this this function here, and rather than deploying it to Cloudflare, I could do it I could just do it in the Sandbox server. Anyways, I'm gonna think about that, and then if there's no reason not to, I might do it there. Or another question is like, could we do the whole thing on Cloudflare and not use this and not use the WebSockets? I just think we're making it more complicated by front end calling the WebSocket backend, then making a request to Cloudflare, which is then making a request to Anthropic. So it works well, but maybe it's confusing. So so that's how that one works. I don't remember why. So right now it's the front end calling the back end, calling the Cloudflare worker, calling Anthropic.
Yeah.
We could simplify by the front end calling the back end, calling Anthropic, or the front end calling Cloudflare, calling Anthropic. Now the back end has the authentication details. So because we want to be able to rate limit how many times a minute or an hour or a day a user can use this feature. That might require the back end, but something that I need to check on. Yeah, I'm not sure if Cloudflare can do that. Actually, let's just check how that's done. So here, how the rate limiting is done. So if I go to the AI here, and then I look under index.js, let's see. I don't see any rate limiting here. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think it is done here. So it might be difficult to do the rate limiting from Anthropic. Something to think about. Sorry, from Cloudflare. So let's go back here and then let's see what happens when we use the AI chat instead, right? I'm gonna open that, and right here, make me a sandwich. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So run this. Great. So and I didn't see anything here. Now, keep in mind we have this filter on to only show the WebSockets. So let's undo that. We actually don't want that. We want to see everything. And here, I'm Under API, I see this. Aha.
Oh,
So this is going to directly. This is going directly to the Cloudflare worker. That's what I was saying is why are we using WebSockets for this one? But
right. Yeah.
go directly. That might be simpler. Let's have a look at the message, and it's streaming as well. So that's really nice. So it's got the messages history stored here. It looks like it's storing everything on the front end. So what that means is, if you close this and then you open it again, well, that's not exactly what it means. It means if you refresh the page, then that'll be lost.
Yep.
And it looks like, yeah, that's just getting stored there. This, but it's working, in that sense. So that's okay. And this is a simpler way to do it, which maybe we should do. I mean, I'm actually in favor of removing as many things from the server
Yeah.
as possible and doing them in Cloudflare. The reason is it's more scalable.
Right.
Cloudflare functions, they only run for the time that you need them. So that seems better. The only question I have is how are we rate limiting here? I'm not sure that our rate limiting is working properly. So that's probably what we need to figure out. I'll just look real quickly at the repository and see, like, have we? Can I search the Git history? So when I search Git history, normally I use a different app
Oh,
because I'm not sure how to do it here. So, but I can do it through this app, and I can just say, okay, so here, move rate limiting to handler functions. Got it. So it looks like the only rate limiting that we have is in the server, the Express.js server.
mm-hmm.
And it is under renaming. Okay. And this is all for renaming files. So that's not, okay. We did want rate limiting that for some reason, I guess. So you can't create too many files at once.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not seeing any rate limiting for the AI, which is
Yeah.
something that we definitely need to have. Unless I'm missing something. Okay. So yeah, that's how this is working now. It looks like it's put together in a way that's working for now, but we should probably come up with a more clear plan how we want to make it work going forward. Like, what's the use of Cloudflare, and actually, one of the things that I'm just really curious about is how Akhilesh got this to work with streaming. The Cloudflare function, I think that's really cool. So let me just look real quick how he did that. So he's using this. Yeah, I remember this. Okay, it's this readable stream. Where's that coming from? Just search for readable.
Is it coming from the index? Oh.
Okay. Okay, it looks like it's part of Cloudflare. It's called Readable Stream, and he's figured out how to stream the data back. So you don't even need a WebSocket to do that.
Right.
That's really cool. And yeah, maybe we should just do all the AI stuff without WebSockets if we can. I'm just trying to think if there's any reason why we would need it. Maybe if you want to have like multiple people on different computers that are seeing the same chat.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't seem like something urgent. Cool. Ask me any other questions that you have about how the backend.
So also like I was curious about like how collaboration thing like works like.
Yeah. So this is another question about something that I didn't make, but let's go to that part of the code, which is it's basically all in the front end because we're using live blocks, and you can see here how they have an example of code. I don't think they do provide a great example of. Oh, here, let's see. We're using there's several of these open source browser-based code editors. We're using one. So, and honestly, we have found this to be a little buggy so far. But I mean, it's pretty cool, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and it's also hard to test. You have to like open multiple windows and stuff, and edit from one window, see if it changed in the other. Edit in the other window, see if it changed in the first window. But that's how this works. And just to kind of look at this code, it is probably some of the most confusing code in our code base. I mean, like I literally understand like less than half of what's going on here. So I would say we might want to come back to this in a more deeper topic with Akhilesh there.
Right.
We've also had a call actually with someone from LiveBlocks in the past to help us to implement to fix some issues. But I would say, can I change this? No. Okay. So I can't actually edit this example because if I could, I would want to kind of delete some stuff and see what happens. But yeah, so basically the way that it works is that the front end is connecting to a the LiveBlock server, in the same way as Clerk, it's all hosted. And it is connecting. I just want to make sure of this. It's not doing anything on the back end. So yeah. So we have this thing called room provider. A room in LiveBlocks is like, it's just like a document or a group of documents.
Right. Yeah.
That multiple people can be inside of. And this room provider here wow, has a lot of hooks. And okay, so it's used in a room. Let's see where the room. Let's see where the room is. Okay, it's used in page.tsx. So we have a room, and then inside of that room, a terminal provider. Okay, but inside of that we have a nav bar and a code editor.
Yeah.
So, and then inside the code editor, I want to see where the room actually gets used by anything. So here, room equals use room. This is the part where the live block stuff actually happens in code editor. And we have provider data. OTS config. So a lot of this is like code formatting and has nothing to do with the live blocks. A lot of it is.
Yeah, I get an idea. Like there's the sandbox ID. That's the unique room ID basically, I guess. And with that ID, like everyone accesses the same room that is the same code editor.
Okay, wow. Okay, I have not looked in this file for months. Akhilesh would have to. Oh my gosh. Wow. This is enormous. But basically, this is handling everything to do with the editor, including live blocks. We really want to factor out live blocks, so it's a separate file,
Right.
and so that it can also be turned off. That's not a great project for you starting out, but it's something that we really want to do, because yeah, we don't want everything to break if live blocks stops working, or if live blocks decides that we've reached our maximum number of users, which they have. So yeah, that's something that we're. But I can't say too much more. You can talk to Akhilesh about that next week.
Yep.
What other stuff can I sort of help to explain?
You can like tell me more about like what you created, like
Yeah.
what you can just walk me through that.
Perfect. So we've already had a little look at how the WebSockets work, right?
Right.
The WebSockets are connecting the front end and the server. And important to note, like that let's look at the let's actually just look at the URLs that are being used here. So the front end is obviously running on sandbox.gateway.dev, obviously. And the server, let's find that WebSocket here. So I just click WS up here, and then I see one WebSocket. It looks like LiveBlocks API, and then this one is our own API. And we see here that is on api.sandbox.gateway.dev. So that's because the reason is because the server is hosted separately. The WebSocket server, this is hosted on Vercel.
Right.
But this is hosted on AWS. So they need different domains for that to work. And so that's the first thing. And then let's look at the code that is hosted on AWS. One thing that I might add is that Um, I think I don't know if we have instructions in the README for how we actually set that up. Because here we just tell people to do. Here we just say do npm run dev,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's how you run it locally. We did not explain how we ran this, how we deployed this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, in production, it's like obviously a different command, but then also you would want to um, store the logs somewhere. So we do something a little bit different, but essentially it is not much different than running npm run dev
Mm-hmm.
on the AWS server. That starts index.ts, which is a relatively small file, as you can tell. A lot of this is just error handling.
Mm-hmm.
We never want this to crash, because if one user causes a crash,
Mm-hmm.
that would take down the server for all users, the
Oh,
website.
right. Yeah.
So this file always has to be running, no matter what happens to one user. And that's another reason why I like to move away from WebSockets. Obviously, serverless functions don't have that problem. And there is a handy way to prevent crashing, which is just this uncaught exception. Of course, it will log what's happening, but we don't want that to stop it. The state of the server consists of a list of connections, and to be clear, a connection is one browser window
Mm-hmm.
that is connected to the server. A
Okay.
user that is signed in can have multiple windows open, of course,
Right. Yeah.
with the same project if they want to.
Yeah.
And then they could also have different computers connected to the same project.
Yep.
They could even have different users connected to the same project, and by project here is the same as a sandbox. So connections and sandboxes are completely different. And this one just keeps track of who's connected to what.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing is that once the owner disconnects, like this is just some very simple code, and when the owner disconnects, it kicks everyone else off,
Oh, okay.
because that's just how we've decided to do it. When
Yeah.
the owner disconnect, kick everyone out. Um, you could do it differently if you wanted to. And then the other thing is, I think that's pretty much that's pretty much it, I think. Oh, and then the other reason why we use this is because when one file is changed by one person in the terminal,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that needs to get updated to all of the people connected,
Right.
so all of their file lists update. Um,
Okay.
so that's also why this we keep track of this, but relatively simple logic. Where it gets more complex is sandboxes. This is just an array, or
Mm-hmm.
rather uh, a record or a dictionary type structure, which connects the IDs of the projects with the sandboxes themselves. So yeah, the ID is literally right here,
Yeah.
and that is how this is set up. Um, this is boilerplate code. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've refactored some of the authentication code into another file, but it literally just checks if the user has access to connect to the sandbox, um, and verifies that the user is the username that they are, which we will use later. We might want to know their username, right? So that's all that this does. The docu is used only when you click this button, deploy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a very separate. This part of the code is very standalone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not connected to very much. You just click deploy and then it deploys.
Yeah.
It has bugs as well, but it's very, like I said, like it stands on its own. You can understand everything without running it, and if it's not configured, it doesn't break anything.
Mm-hmm.
It just
Right.
it just says it's not configured. So that's nice. The same with this. This is another part of Doku. It uses Git. Once you actually click update, it actually uses Git protocol to push all the files to where they're hosted. But not necessary to understand unless you're working on that part of the code. This is a wrapper around. This is literally just a wrapper around the Cloudflare API calls, and yeah, and so it looks like this. Just like that. So yeah, we need to figure out if we're going to keep this or find some way, put the rate limiting in here, or find some way to do rate limiting on Cloudflare. So that's something we need to figure out. This is the code. This is the function that actually gets called when a browser window connects to the backend.
Mm-hmm.
And that authentication code I showed you before, it generates all of this. What's the user ID?
Right.
Sandbox ID.
So,
The type is the template. That could be a little bit
okay.
more clear.
Mm-hmm.
This is the name of the template. Maybe I should just call it template. But right now it's just type, where type is basically React, Vanilla, React.js, Vanilla.js, Next.js, or Streamlit.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 4 types that we have right now, but we'll add a lot more. I think template probably makes more sense. Yeah, record that it's connected, who's connected. Don't let them in if the sandbox owner isn't connected. And then check and see if the sandbox is already in the list for that ID.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, if it isn't, well, if it is, then we have it. If it isn't, then we need to create it. Now, when you create it, a whole bunch of stuff happens. The E2B sandbox probably gets spun up. The files get copied.
Right.
Get copied into the sandbox. The files from the names of the files from the sandbox then get sent to the browser. Well, actually, that happens anyways. So even if you don't create a new sandbox, I think that would happen. Yeah, that'll happen anyways. It should happen anyways. Yeah, that's why this is here. So the sandbox.initialize means that even if we didn't recreate, even if the sandbox already existed, we still need say, hey, make sure all the files are synced, and then send me the full list of files. And then once we get that, we send those from the server to the client. And then this sets up the notifications so that anytime anything changes, we also send this loaded message to the client. Anytime there's a file change event.
Mm-hmm.
We're only doing this for file names right now: new file, delete file, rename file. But at some point, you might want that if a file contents changes, then that also notifies the user in case they have that file open. That's more future.
Right.
So this part here, what? Listen on the socket for that event. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, this is a super dense part of the code, but all that it does, fortunately, you never really need to change this. What this does is it sets up socket listeners for, if you go to sandbox.ts, for all of these.
Oh, right.
So it's just a way to make it so that all of these functions here, they get set up as part of the web server. But it's a little bit weird. Reading this is a little bit weird because you basically call the socket.on
Mm-hmm.
to set up a socket listener.
Oh.
And yeah, now we're listening to them. And then afterwards, we should um, this will delete all those listeners automatically, actually, when the user disconnects. So yeah, this is really just saying, okay, we're ready to be listening. If any of these methods events come in, send it to the
Mm-hmm.
appropriate function, and it also passes in this data as well, the user ID after the owner. Yeah. So yeah, that part is a little bit. I can improve this comment a lot as to what it actually is doing, but basically, yeah, it's just gluing. It's just getting ready to listen for events from the front end. And yeah, when the user finally disconnects, which should happen when they close the window. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wonder if it always does happen, but it seems like 90% of the time it happens. It it doesn't turn off the sandbox. That's what the heartbeat is for.
Right. Yeah.
Does it do anything? It closes all terminals that are open,
Mm-hmm.
and it closes all file watchers. So it's sort of just like a cleanup. These file watchers will be created again if you open a new window. So that's why they're closed now. So yeah, that's what the server looks like. And then of course the most interesting part of all of this is like, what are all of these event handlers? Here you have
Mm-hmm.
we've already seen a lot of them.
Yeah.
Heart, um, create terminal, resize terminal, terminal data, and
Mm-hmm.
generate code. But fortunately, each of these is very much standalone as well. So yeah, if you need to change something, you can just go in and change it. So I have a few of these that I need to actually rewrite myself.
Mm-hmm.
There's one called, I think, new create file, and create folder. It's a little bit buggy because, let's see, handle create file. Success. So we have a little bug here that I need to fix. Let's see. So if I create a new file and I say hi,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, nothing happened. Okay, so okay, here. So now,
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, let's do this again, because I want to see what's actually happening when this is going on. Okay, so let's create a new one. Okay, we see 3 of them. Okay, this is really
Yeah.
fun. Why are there 3? So we did just get
Yeah.
this loaded one again. Let me do it one more time. Okay, we're getting 2. Now we have 4 of the highs. Yeah, so something is really messed up here.
Yeah,
But
because like we want to flag out like the file already exists. Don't use the same file name or like anything like that.
no, but that's impossible. It's impossible to have 2 files with the same name. So
Yeah,
it's not actually creating. If you look here, and I just do ls,
ls, yeah,
there, let me do it here. So you're actually gonna see like it wasn't created
right.
times. What happened was this event. Some
Mm-hmm.
At some point, it's what it's doing is it's um, the front end. On the front end, it's actually running create file here,
Mm-hmm.
and if that was successful, it's adding the file name to the list.
Right. Okay. And we're just querying the list over there.
And it looks like it's getting added on both ends to the list. If we refresh this, it's all going to be correct. So it's really just a small glitch of how the events are run. But I think I could even just delete. I might even just be able to delete this part. That's probably the first thing I'll try, because it looks like this loaded. That loaded event is coming in again. So this one is coming in. So that should probably be enough to refresh all the files and fix it.
Right.
I hope. So I might try. Could try it now. Could do it later.
Yep. Also, I see one problem that like most of the code, like there's this one barrier with me that I don't understand TypeScript and JavaScript in general. So I'm not able to figure that out. That's one thing that I need to like get on like get the level with like.
Well, it's up to you if you want to learn it, but I'd say it's a pretty good skill to have
Mm-hmm.
these times.
Right.
Um, there was a quote that said, there was someone that said, was it someone from Vercel that said,
Mm-hmm.
the modern AI engineer is a TypeScript engineer. Um, so basically, a, a lot of people working for AI startups are writing in TypeScript and not Python.
Yep.
As,
Also, like I have one question. So
yeah.
like if you are just starting out as a software engineer, like is it good to learn multiple things, like multiple languages, multiple frameworks, or is it good to like stick to one and explore deep and get expert of that?
Well, the first thing I would do is actually not even thinking about learning the actual rules and syntax, but I would just try
Mm-hmm.
and talk to as many different engineers as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and just ask them, hey, what's your stack? Quote, what's the stack that you use for work?
Mm-hmm.
What's the stack that you use for fun?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what's your favorite stack to use? Which sometimes they're all different, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Um, like sometimes, like for work, maybe it's Java, and then maybe for their projects, maybe they use Python, but their favorite
Mm-hmm.
to use is JavaScript. So I just like to ask people and then ask them why. And I think just by doing that, you'll pick up a lot of like you'll pick up a lot about the general character and vibes of
Mm-hmm.
the different tools, and like for example, um, JavaScript is much better for making interfaces.
Right.
So people that are working on projects that need to look good, they'll be using JavaScript. But if it's more about just showing data,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't need to look good, then they'll use Python. But
Right.
that's not really something that you will learn by looking at the JavaScript or Python documentation. You just learn it from talking to people.
Right.
And I would just try and do that as much as possible. And the best place to do that is at hackathons. Then, yeah, then you can make up your own decision. Like, is it worth, like, am I working on something that should look good and feel responsive? In our case,
Mm-hmm.
obviously we are.
Yeah.
So we do. So we use TypeScript, and that's a high priority for us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I find that a lot of people skip that step of like, why do people even use this tool? Like, if JavaScript and Python are both so good, why do they both still exist?
Mm-hmm.
And just learn about the pros and cons of each one, and then you'll be pretty well prepared to talk to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and go from there.
Right. And also like with this new AI like code generators, code writers, is it really necessary to learn new frameworks? Because it can really do not yet, but it can really do what you ask it to do. If you ask it to mostly people, I heard from Sundar Pichai that 40% of the code at Google is AI generated. So is it really useful learning a language from scratch? Because AI can do that for you.
Well, let's say 40% of the code is AI generated, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
The they're they I don't think they fired 40% of their engineers. The ones that are there are still getting paid a lot.
Right.
I think they're still working.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the other 60% just becomes a lot more important, right? So we're not seeing like AI systems that code as well that replace human programmers.
Right.
So we're just seeing them augmenting the abilities. Like, I think the best example that I've seen
Mm-hmm.
ever is probably Akhilesh writing um, this chat on the side. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't watch him to create it, so I don't know. But he just keeps saying like, yeah, I've just been working with AI to make this, and he's been incredibly fast making all of
Yeah.
these
Right.
AI components. This one, you know, this one. So it's sped him up a lot. But
Right.
he's already a really good programmer who knows the foundations of React. Um, so yeah, you're still gonna need to learn the
Makes sense. Yep.
the framework that you're working in. You're still gonna need to understand it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, and the other thing is that the docs, you the AI tools are not that they're still not that good at like reading documentation.
Right. 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 Right.
So they sometimes make mistakes where like they use the code as it would have been like 2 months ago instead of now.
Yeah, because if you tell it to use the OpenAI chat completions,
Yeah,
it uses the previous versions of it,
yeah, yeah,
and you have to go into the docs and read the docs and change the code
yeah,
there.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean, do your best using the AI. If you can get I mean, if you can get really far using just AI, then that's great. I'll be, yeah, really happy to hear that. I find that it depends.
Right, like it's unique to your use case. Like it's not like generalized to everyone. Like each
Yeah,
person has their own preferences.
that's true. Yeah, and I find for like the back end, the stuff that I'm doing is very, it's less useful a little bit for me.
Right,
That's just my feeling. Um, because the back end is more about visualizing how many different parts connect,
right.
and that's just a little bit too much for the AI right now.
That's right. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and like what would you like me to start working on like this week or like maybe the next week?
Yeah. Um, that's a great question. So let me just. I lost the. Oh, here. Sorry, I lost my mouse for a second. Here. Um, here it is. Perfect. Yeah. So the first step is here. Let me end this. So I think we have a really good stream.